Hey guys, welcome back to It Takes Two. And today's going to be a really big day because we are talking about how to fight fair. So I think some people have this idea that if they don't have any conflict and they don't have any fights, that somehow that equates to a really successful marriage. But I got an idea that you guys are probably going to poke on that a little bit. So what are some of the rules that you guys use in fighting fair, and maybe even hitting that idea that to not fight at all somehow means you got a great marriage?
First of all, it's hard for me to imagine a marriage where you don't fight at all. That's kind of weird to me. I can't understand that concept. But secondly, I think for Scott and I with fighting, like we've talked about before, we're both super strong personalities. We both have a tendency to run our mouth. And I think when you're young and you're immature, like a little kid gets mad and says, I hate you to somebody, or, lashes out and just says whatever's in their head comes out their mouth. I think that's still really difficult when you're an adult not to let that happen. So I think for us, just as we've grown in our marriage, trying to be reserved with what you say and not just say what comes to your head, it's been helpful for us to talk to a counselor and be able to say things in a safer place than being able to just try to hash out some really hard, difficult things on our own. But yeah, I think just being guarded with what you say, knowing how powerful your words are.
Absolutely. I think there's absolutely nothing healthy that's going to come out of your mouth when you're angry. So to take times where sometimes you may say, you know what, I just need a timeout real quick to just let me go calm down for a minute and do that. And sometimes, I think when we were younger, we were thinking that was a cop-out. And even sometimes when I've told people that, they'll say stuff like, well, if that was true, we would never talk because they would just time out all the time. Well, it's kind of like, you got to have it where it's not that I'm calling a timeout, like I never want to talk about this again. I just am not in a good place right now emotionally. I need to kind of settle down, pray, and then let's
not
re-engage.
in a good place, or you may not have time to fully engage. Like you may have 10 minutes and you're going to try to tackle something that's going to take 2 hours.
Yeah.
And you're not going to get anything
So I think
positive
even
done.
there, it's where you got to say, look, I don't think, I need to think about this more. I need to get it together, or hey, we need more time to talk about it and re-engage. I think whoever calls the timeout, we kind of have it where they're also in charge of initiating the conversation again. So it isn't like I call a timeout and it's never there, and it's my job and my responsibility to re-engage in that.
Okay, so let's land on that for just a second. So this idea of calling a timeout, you're not talking about withdrawing from the relationship or withdrawing love from that person. You're saying, I'm just not ready to do this right now. Can I call a timeout? How were your
That
first
takes a
few
lot of
times?
patience.
Okay, yeah, talk a little bit about that, because that's
It made
one
me
of those
super
tool
mad the
things
first
that
time
sometimes it's
he
tough.
did that, because I felt like I was so emotionally charged about the issue, or I felt so pressed that we needed to figure it out, that it was hard to take a break on that. But then once we did that, I think you were just so much more calm. It's like when when the boys were young and they talk about, you teach you all the time about not disciplining your kids when you're so angry, you want to kill them. And that was the worst time to discipline them, versus if you could send them off to their room for a little while. So we saw it with our kids all the time, and we did try to do that with them because it was a difference of night and day. If we just sent them off for a little while, settled down, and then we could have a calm conversation. It's the same concept, I think.
What's so funny is that, not funny, but what's ironic, and yet I know it's true probably for everybody. The closer the relationship, which is the close relationship you have as your marriage, I think the more you want it to, you don't play by rules.
Right.
It seems like we don't need rules here. We're married, like of engagement. Like if it's somebody in the church or it's somebody in normal life that I'd have a critical conversation to have,
You would watch every word out of your mouth.
I would be careful on every
Right.
single thing I did. I would get up that morning and rehearse the conversation, journal it out. I would make sure that before
Pray
we
before
talked,
we
we would
talked,
pray.
yeah.
If it ever got heated, I would go, hey, listen, I value you and I don't want this to get this way. I want us to be able to have a win-win here. I would have such practice prepared, all this. And yet it seems like in marriage, if you do that, like, why do you got to work so hard to be in marriage? Why do you have to work so hard? It's just us. Why can't you just free flow? Because the thing is if you're not prepping your heart, I think you should do it even more. Because I can lose in 30 seconds of anger. I can set back our relationship 6 months. The trust that's been built up. I mean, it's so important what you say and how you say it, that I think sometimes the timeout, it's not, I'm saying timeout like I don't want to talk about it. It's timeout is I don't want to do anything that's going to mess this up, and I need to take some time. Let me just
get
have a
myself
few
together.
minutes. The other thing is, if we know we're on a hot button, and hot buttons, money, hot buttons, kids, hot buttons, sex or intimacy stuff, hot buttons, even church, or for me, job, so schedule and how we're doing that. Okay, these are hot. We know these are hot, but these are the things. If we're going to be discussing things, it's always in one of these things. Okay, and I think that's a lot of times with other people too. If you know what those hot buttons are, you know those are the things. Don't ever spontaneously get in a discussion on those things.
It's not worth the risk.
No, so it can be like this. Hey, I really feel like we need to talk about the kids, or something. Or hey, I really want to have a talk about budget on finance. When would be a good time for us to talk about it? It could be, I know you're going to think, I know some of you are going to think this is silly. It could be, let's do that in 10 minutes. I mean, literally, you're going like, what's the difference between now and 10 minutes? It's, I can go get my mind in the mode of that discussion.
Or finish what you're doing and be
Finish
able
what
to
I'm
give your full
exactly.
attention to it.
But does this make sense?
Yeah.
So you're giving space to mentally prepare yourself for that, so there isn't loose words and things that are going on, and you're preparing yourself emotionally.
I think a lot of people.
And by the way, we don't always do these things perfectly.
Okay, good. I'm glad you're saying that
Because like even when you know it, you still go, I don't want to wait no 10 minutes. Let's talk about it right now.
Right.
You know.
So you guys, for a lot of people, are kind of the pillar. Man, if we could just be like Scott and Jenny, somehow they're always able to get it together and stuff. But there are times, there's only been a couple of times in the 27 years that I've known y'all that anger actually got ahead of the using the tools and engaging appropriately and fighting fair.
There.
Yeah, I think I was there a few times. One of the things you didn't add to that list a minute ago was Christmas, and that's always a hot topic, and even in the modes. So I know there have been some times when Jenny, you were losing your mind more or less and dealing with the anger. Give us a very quick horror story and how that might be different now compared to 10 years ago or last week or.
Well, I think learning to take time to talk about a subject when we're mad about it is very different for me, because for me, I get upset about it. And in our early years of marriage, I could almost follow Scott around the room, like finishing what I wanted to say if he was still trying to do something or I didn't have his full attention. And you just say ugly things. I mean, I don't know. I think you have a tendency to get so focused on everything that he's doing wrong until you start taking responsibility for the issues that you've got. And I think until you get to a place where you can realize, I can't make him do this or make him do that, and we can talk about it and we can do all that, but I can only change myself.
So I think we can go back to a story at Christmas that happened a long time ago, a couple of decades ago.
Yeah, which one?
But the one where
Wait,
like,
which one is it?
Well, the family's out there doing stuff, and I'm back in the bedroom, and I'm reading a book, and you come back and said, "So, what are you doing back here?" And I'm going, "I'm just reading a book," and you're going.
Why don't you paint the picture for everyone of how big the family is, how much we do, how
Can
much
y'all do
manual
this in a
labor
minute and a
there is?
half? Are y'all going to be able to tell
I
this
think
story?
So it's
Yes.
a lot of people. I mean,
There's a lot of
Christmas for all of us
Yes.
is like 30 people there.
It's a lot of
whatever.
pressure, actually.
Yeah,
and not as much now, but
because it's
before.
open up presents on Christmas goes 6 hours, and each person goes individually, and there's a way to go. Let's take pictures. Let's look at that.
Yes.
Now, I love it now. I've kind of grown into it, but back then it was like I was going nuts. Not only that, I was struggling emotionally. I was having issues where with the church, with different things going on, me personally, in relationship, everything. So when this went on, she basically, "What are you doing?" I'm going, "I'm back here. I can't handle this. I can't do this."
Because I found you hiding back there reading a book.
And then you said, "You come out here and love my family and be friends with my family." I'm going, "I can't even see them right now or talk to them right now. This is driving." And then it got so bad, you took a hairspray bottle and threw
No,
it
it
at
was a
me.
deodorant bottle.
A deodorant bottle and threw it at me. And I went, "Whoa,
I chunked it at
okay
you.
now."
I chunked it at you,
And
but then we later found out I was pregnant.
Exactly.
So that was
Then we
one
did the
little
pee
bit of an
test,
excuse.
and she was
Okay.
pregnant. And so then I go, "Oh, that explains a lot."
But you did make me that mad.
I know. So, but you know what happened after that is I said, "I'm telling you right now, I'm having a breakdown. I got to go see a counselor." She goes, schedule it when we get back. You go see them because I'm not going to live in this. So that's what prompted me to even start going to a counselor. I was really depressed. So I wasn't performing in the way that I would normally do because I was in a place that was a bad place individually. Look, you can't have healthy marriage unless you have two healthy individuals. So a lot of it has to do with personal responsibility. I mean, I heard it said one time is, how to fix problems in your marriage. The way to start is draw a circle on the ground, step into that circle, and work on what's inside of that circle. Right. The best thing I can do is keep working on me and take that responsibility. The best thing Jenny can do is take the responsibility on her side, and then we do the work. This is work. It doesn't just happen. You don't just have a great marriage, you build one, you work at it.
Right. Sometimes it's a beat down.
It is very difficult at times,
Yeah.
but it's worth it on the other side when we
is.
do it. Because what's the other side? Okay, we're going to act like everything's okay and never talk about things and never deal with it. That's not.
Okay, so one of the real hot topics, you mentioned it already, but this seems to be a hot topic for most people, is the money discussion. And even though you guys have some of the same perspectives about money, take a minute and talk a little bit about how you guys engage there.
Because you handled the money mostly.
Yeah, I think I've always handled the money. And I think, sure, it's easier now in our phase of life because we've got grown kids that have taken on all their bills. We've got one kid who's halfway taking on his bill, so it gets easier. But I mean, you're talking our the whole time, just like everybody else, it's money stressful. There's never enough of it. Your kid gets sick, they go to the doctor, you go get medicine. Well, by then you don't even have grocery money left for that week. I mean, we've all been there and done that. It's all relative as to what phase you're in. So I think money is so stressful, period.
Yeah.
That, you have to talk about it. You have to be on the same page about it.
So good thing for us is it's not like I'm a saver and she's a spender, or
No.
like we're both good on the saving. We're not like we have a budget, we must hit this, like robotic or whatever. It's more of we have a budget and we're doing our best to live within that, and we've always worked together good as a team on that. One of the things I think that we've learned is just because she pays the bills doesn't mean she carries the burden of that. I'm the leader of the house. I've got to take the burden responsibility of covering that and carrying that load and being aware of what's going on and do that.
Because we fought about that a lot in our young days. I was handling all that stuff, and I felt like it just was in and out his mind.
Like I wasn't like you just doing it. I've delegated it to you, but really hadn't delegated. It was dump, and you can't do that in a marriage.
Right.
I need to carry the responsibility of it. Of what do we have? Where are we going to do it? The decisions that need to be made.
And I think that's the way for both spouses. Even if you were paying the bills, I would still need to be engaged on how are we? Is there anything I can do to help you with that? I mean,
and again, that's communicating on what your strengths are as a couple and figuring that out, but carrying it. But I think the thing is this communication again. I think you've got to have a communication where you can trust each other. This is what we're going to do, and we actually do it. This is what's going on, and I don't have secret things going on over here, that you've got to communicate about those things with each other.
Okay, so...
And if it doesn't happen, like I'm talking about not just that one, Mark, but in everything, there's times, we go see a counselor now, it's more proactive. It hasn't always been a proactive deal. In the beginning of us going, it was like, dude, I can't figure this out. You can't figure this out. We can't figure this out together. We keep hitting a wall. The Bible says that you need to have people who you carry each other's burdens. I think of a counselor as a professional burden bearer. I mean, they have incredible skills on this. So going to a counselor and helping them help us grow as a couple and to gain skills to be better in marriage is huge.
So you guys have hit some of the key things that you're doing to be able to fight fair, but what I keep hearing is taking some personal responsibility about your own stuff that you're bringing to the table. So just before we go into the time of discussion, people are going to get to discuss this topic. Just kind of close it down with that idea of taking personal responsibility, and then pray for us.
Yeah, you got to take personal responsibility for your life and your spiritual walk and the disciplines of your life. If there are personal issues, you got to deal those. If it's marital issues, most marital issues can be solved by learning skills. You learn skills to deal with marriage, but skills can't take the place of personal lacking of integrity, or not being trustworthy, or not living in such a way that has that character. So I have to deal with those health issues in my life and how I'm handling it, and then learn the skills as well. I want to say this before we shut down and pray, is that I think it's very important that you guys, we all know that fighting fair is kind of one of the words that was used. I don't really like that term much because everybody, the word fight is different in definition. I mean, our fighting has never gotten to any kind of physical type.
Except when I threw the deodorant
Yeah,
bottle
the
at you.
deodorant, but that you missed. So it was a physical try
Yeah.
of abusing me. But yeah, so, but the thing is that we do know, I know from counseling and just being a pastor and engagement, some have experienced physical trauma, physical abuse, verbal abuse, different kinds of things that have gone on. And so I understand there's different levels. There's no excuse for physical abuse. There's no excuse for ongoing mental abuse in this. Seek out counseling. Hey, call Pastor Brian at the church. Get engaged with a counseling session to even talk about, hey, this is what's happening. I mean, how do we get better at this? What do we do? And you don't need to live in that all the time, and you shouldn't. You need to seek help on that. And I just want to make sure, I don't know, I just felt like we needed to talk about that, because even as we're talking about it, it's like, okay, you're talking at this level, mine's at this. Totally understand, but we can't hit it all. And so, but we want to hit it all in an individual session if we can. So, God, I pray that you just touch all of our friends and everybody who's in this session. Bless their marriages. Help them, Lord, to take the personal responsibility where they need to do that. And then to learn the skills of how to talk to each other when things get heated. And we ask you to give us the patience and the grace to grow together. Amen.